Hey guys, Richard Holden here and welcome to the channel. So the question for today is, will this motor actually run? As you know, this is a 2.2 liter Chrysler circa 1984 that I pulled from the wrecking yard from a Dodge 600. But I want to know if it's going to run. Unfortunately, I cannot hook it up to the dyno because we don't have the proper bell housing. Now, we are making an adapter plate, but I will not be able to run that until after the adapter plate is made. I want to find out if this motor is actually a runner so that we can put it up on the dyno when we have the adapter done. So the next best thing is a stand start. I'm going to show you everything that was required for us to put this thing on our engine stand, hook everything up, find out if it's a runner. Let's get going. Because I knew the factory injectors were damaged in the engine fire before we pulled the motor out of the wrecking yard, I replaced them with a set of 24-pound blue Ford injectors from the cabinet at West Tech Performance. Before we installed them in the factory fuel rails, I made sure to flow those Ford injectors because we hadn't run them for quite a while. What I did was flow them on the ASNU injector machine just to make sure that they flowed evenly before we installed them into the factory fuel rails. Check it out. Seemed to flow pretty well. Nice and even and ready to install. We then installed the 24-pound injectors into the factory fuel rail. Make sure to lubricate the O-rings. With the injectors in place, we installed the fuel rail back onto the intake manifold. Then bolted the fuel rail back in place. To provide access to the throttle body and turbo assembly, I removed the seat belt that we used to pull the motor from the engine bay of the Dodge 600. Because the silicone coupler was damaged, I removed the throttle body. You can see the damage here. There's a second silicone coupler between the intake manifold and turbocharger. After removing the bolts and various fittings, we were able to pull the turbocharger away from the exhaust manifold. Removal of the turbo assembly provided access to the coupler between the intake manifold and the turbocharger. Check out the cool divider. After checking the coupler between the intake and the turbo, it was time to reinstall the turbo assembly. After positioning the turbo assembly in place, we hit all the bolts, make sure that they were plenty tight. Unfortunately, I didn't have a suitable replacement for the coupler between the turbocharger and the throttle body. We simply taped up the factory one that was damaged, and there were no leaks. With our coupler repaired, we reinstalled the factory throttle body. We also installed a number of vacuum caps to stop any vacuum leaks. Because we wouldn't be running any water on our stand start, there was no need to connect all the water lines. The next order of business was hooking up our oil pressure line. We removed the factory sending unit, installed our fitting, so that we could hook up our oil line. We installed the line onto the fitting. Give it a little wiggle test there. And tighten it in place. The fitting in line, we're designed to send oil pressure up to our gauge. Fingers crossed, and we'd see oil pressure under cranking and running. Before installing our fancy new distributor, we had to verify TDC, which we then marked. Let's take a look at what went into making our distributor. The first step was finding a suitable piece of L angle and draw out the pattern to miss the distributor. Then Troy from Westech cut out the pattern. Then I notched the distributor to clear the new sensor. You can see the 2 cuts here made with the saw. The final step was to break that wall down. And boom. Now it's time to drill the hole for the LS1 crank sensor. After struggling with larger and larger bits, we eventually just stepped up to a unibit. Now we're getting somewhere. Quick check on sizing, a little more drilling. A little bump of the camera, that never hurt. A little more drilling, a little more drilling. A little more drilling, and boom, fits like a glove. Just needed a small spacer, a little tweak of the mounting plate, everything was ready to go. After hooking up the distributor, we hooked up power to the starter, the rest of the wiring harness, see if we got any sparky. She's getting close.
Do you want me to tighten that up?
Yeah, tighten it down a little more.
First, a quick check for oil pressure. Make sure we got oil pressure while she's cranking over and running. We got spark, we got fuel. I think she's going to be a runner.
We're getting oil pressure.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
I heard it run.
More?
It's alive! It's alive!
60 pounds.
Yeah.
Now let's keep her running on the juice and then hook up the injectors to see if we can do it for real. Check out that fancy pulse width modulating of that brake wheel. Yeah! Let me know in the comments what you think that duty cycle is.
Yeah, it's running.
I was trying to find the sweet spot like
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see here at this angle.
After running on the brake cleaner, it was time to hook up the rest of the harness for the HOLLEY ECU and get this thing running for real. We also supplied fuel to the factory fuel rail.
Yep. Okay, go for it. Go ahead.
Take the time yourself?
No, go ahead. It just probably needs more fuel.
Okay.
Okay guys, what do you think about this video on our stand start on the 2.2 liter Chrysler motor? Always awesome to hear the thing fire up, but here's my question. Did you notice during the video when I motioned to the oil pressure gauge, do you think that that oil pressure is too low for something running at 2,000 RPM, especially something that's brand new? It's obviously cold. We put fresh oil in it. Do you think I should take this thing apart, take the pan off, maybe check the oil pump, check the bearings? What should I do? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. More testing on the 2.2 and every other motor coming up.